You grab your starter. So I'll grab it. Alrighty guys, this is going to be the first startup of the SYXMoto VK 58cc mini dirt bike. If you haven't seen the unboxing and setup video, make sure you go check that out. We go through pretty detailed on how to set this bike up from out of the box to what you see in front of you. We got premium 93 octane fuel. The tag on the side of the motor says 92 octane. I don't know where you can get 92 octane from where we are. 91 or 93. Honestly, it doesn't matter as long as you don't have ethanol in the fuel. I would not recommend running any ethanol in this thing. It hardens the fuel lines, it hardens the diaphragms and the carburetors, and if you let them sit over a long period of time, you're gonna have problems, I can guarantee it.
You're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah. I'll show you how to check the engine oil. This particular bike, it looks like it was missing the O-ring on the dipstick. It was basically plastic to aluminum. In all the other machines I've ever worked on, it's always had some sort of rubberized seal to keep oil obviously leaking out of your dipstick. So I would recommend you check that to see if you have an O-ring. We are gonna add an O-ring to our dipstick. If you guys have questions on dimensions of the O-ring, I can get you that, but we haven't put it on quite yet, but we are going to in the future because I see it necessary that it should have an O-ring. So just a little tip of information there. So we got premium gas in it. I have to look at the capacity of the fuel tank. I don't know if the book said anything about specs on it. Nothing really for how much the fuel tank is in capacity. It might have it on SYXMoto's website, so you guys can check there. Otherwise, if I had to guess, it's definitely less than a gallon. It's probably around half to 3/4 of a gallon. So, but this bike's gonna run a long time on that little bit of gas. I'm gonna get you around to the right side so you guys can see the engine oil dipstick. You're gonna wanna check it with the bike upright and level, so not on the side stand. So I'm gonna have Mark, he's gonna hold the bike level. The dipstick is right down in front of that cross member right there. It's black in color on this bike, probably gonna be the same color on all of them for the engine. It does recommend that you use 10W40 for engine oil. So we'll get that out. I was checking it with this dipstick screwed in all the way. The manual did not say how to check it, but with mine screwed in all the way, the oil is pretty much at the full mark. There's some hashes on the dipstick. As long as you're, on the stick somewhat, you're gonna be safe. The O-ring I'm talking about usually is right on top of the dipstick. You can see there's a gap for it past the threads. So there was not one on here, so just keep that in mind. You have to check the oil, guys, before that first startup. That is like a mandatory thing to do. Because you never know, anything can happen at the factory. There could be no oil in it. There could be over full on oil. It could be spewing out. So you're gonna wanna check that. So all we do is we tighten the dipstick by hand. When you're cold starting this bike, there is a choke, guys. Before you start this engine, looking at the choke, I'll zoom in here for you. The choke paddle, it does say off and on. It says on is up, off with a down arrow. That is backwards, guys. When the choke is off, the paddle is pointed upward. When you pull the lever downward, you're actually choking the machine. All it's doing is it's a plastic arm with a little paddle on it that closes the throat of the carburetor off. So when that lever is down, you're rocking that paddle closed, you're choking the engine. So when you take the lever and push it up or on, it should almost mean like run. Like on is like your run, off is like start. So when the paddle is on, that's choke off and the bike runs properly. You're gonna see in the video, we let it run and warm up, and that's why it took a long time to start initially, is we had the choke off. We actually did it backwards. So I want to save your guys some grief because it's untraditional what you think. So hopefully that clears that up. This bike probably would have started in 2-3 pulls, I bet. Yeah. And as soon as we found that out, the thing runs awesome. It's got so much power, way more throatier sound. So you guys will see the actual startup, but if you're hearing that note of the engine, that's with the choke on. That paddle is backwards. So hopefully that clears that up. Our fuel shutoff valve is on. Make sure that is on when you put gas in it. I'll zoom you back out here. And then I'll show you the primer. It's pretty cold out today though. Probably what, less than 40 degrees, so we'll see how this bike starts. Primer is actually, guys, it's hidden. It's straight underneath the carburetor. You know, it's underneath it vertically. If you're looking at it, it's straight on the bottom. You're gonna have to reach your hand in right by the air filter area, which is this portion, and not so that you touch the exhaust pipe when it's hot. But the nice thing is you shouldn't have to probably prime it when the engine's hot. It's just that initial cold start. So you shouldn't burn yourself when you're doing it because the engine's gonna be cold. But the primer is underneath there, and you're gonna wanna prime this engine probably 7 to 10 times when it's cold. And you'll see as soon as I start priming it, it should start pulling in fuel. Prime it. Get it primed up here. It's a little tough to get at. Yep, okay. So that took quite a few primes, guys, for being dry. Probably took 10 to 12 primes. You can prime this up all you want when the engine is off like this. All it's doing is taking the fuel and returning it to the tank. When you're running the engine, you don't obviously want to keep priming it if it's running. Don't do that. But you want to see fuel in the primer bulb. I'll try to get you down there low enough so that you guys can see that. I might be able to zoom in far enough. So right there, that clear primer bulb, that's actually full of fuel now after I primed it up. So you want to prime it up until it's full and then probably give it a couple more after that on the initial cold start. Especially on the initial out of the box startup, you're definitely going to want to give it some primes. So the choke is on, our tether switch is on. Your kill switch is also this button here. If you hold it in, that shouldn't be stuck in, you know, so it should be good, but making sure your tether cap is on. Kind of give her some pulls, I think.
Yeah, probably make sure you put your tether switch on.
Yeah.
First start.
If it's somebody that's new to the machine, especially.
Or your first startup, you don't know what.
Yep.
So definitely.
So I have my assistant at all times ready to pull the tether. You always want to make sure you give your throttle, give it a twist, make sure that it returns properly, and then I heard it start running, I went ahead and I turned the choke lever off. Because as the engine warms up, you're going to want to use less choke. It's very cold today here. You can see my breath in the video, maybe. Sounds a lot different than the MT2, because it actually has an exhaust pipe. We'll see though. There you have it. Once again, if you're interested in picking up one of these bikes, SYXMoto.com. Less than 500 bucks, guys. Plenty of different colors. If you have questions, leave a comment down below. If you have questions on setup and unboxing and putting it all together, we have a video on that, so check that out. And then we'll have a riding video. Obviously not one of us riding it because we're a little too big, but a younger kid will be riding the bike so you guys can see how it handles with someone of a younger age and a beginner skill level.
You grab your starter.
Grab it. That's how it should sound.
Now
So-
you can show them with the choke.
Yes.
Backwards, what it also says.
So what it sounds like if you put the choke the other way, actually choking the machine off, this would be strictly only cold starts. You guys hear the difference there? It's almost like a rev limiter on a big dirt bike. It's so rich that it can't breathe and it chokes itself out. So
choke.
make sure you guys are mindful of that choke setup, because I guarantee we're not the only ones.
Oh yeah.
So I'm glad we got that figured out. There's nothing wrong with the bike. Thing sounds good, it's ready to go, starts right up. And I'm sure your cold start and initial first start is gonna be way smoother than ours. It actually started on its own without a choke, so that's pretty good sign, guys.
Yeah.
That means the carburetor is doing its job and nothing's restricted. But use that choke the opposite of what that little diagram on the side says. Do it exactly how I explained it. You're going to be golden.